My father is the ultimate storyteller. I remember when I was a kid, every day he'd be just a bit late coming home from work. As my siblings and I eagerly gathered around the dinner table, he would recount the tale of what happened. Once, he was late because when he was driving home, he came across a house on the beach. The tidal waves were strong and high, and a woman called out, "Please, come help me, my house is going to be swept away." My father rushed to her aid as she handed him things from her home. He vowed to keep them safe for her and promised to return them when she found a new house. My siblings and I shook our heads in disbelief. "Come with me, I can prove it," he'd say, and we followed him out to the car, and sure enough, the trunk was filled with pots and pans and blankets from the woman. One time, he was late because when he got to his car, he saw that it had been swarmed by hundreds of ants. He decided to lure them out with Slurpees from 7-Eleven, and just so happened to bring home a few extra for us. And then there was the time that there was a giant rhino blocking the intersection, and my father had the clever idea to tie the rhino to the car and tow him away. Of course, the rhino managed to break free and escape, but sure enough, the rope was still attached to the back of the car. We were in awe. I distinctly remember this one time waking up to find that my bed had been surrounded by dozens of beaded dolls. They peered at me from the tabletop and the nightstand and the dresser, and I ran to my father and sat in his lap as he spun the elaborate tale of the African princesses who had traveled across the world just to see me. When I went away to summer camp, I found that most kids got letters from their parents updating them about things back home and asking them how camp was going. Mine, on the other hand, came with frequent updates about this supposed elephant that had escaped the zoo that my father took pity on and was staying in my room until I got back. And the most amazing thing is that interspersed among the tall tales were true stories from his life that didn't seem any less extraordinary. Every Saturday morning, he would get dressed in his long Hasidic garb, take my small hand in his, and we would walk the mile to synagogue together. The whole way, he would tell me about a life before this one, about the time that he was nearly attacked by a shark, the time multiple times he went to jail fighting for civil rights, the time he and his previous wife and children had joined a cult commune. I learned about what it was like to be the only white person living in Compton, what it was like to be a strawberry picker, a juvenile probation officer, a fisherman on a tuna boat. The stories were endless. And all these stories led up to the crucial point of my childhood that took place at my family's Pesach Seder. Every year, my favorite part of Pesach is when we welcome Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, into our home. Now, for those of you who have never been to a Seder before, this ritual involves filling a cup of wine and sending the children to the door to open it and welcome him in. I was always delighted to find that just a bit of wine was gone. And I made sure to tell all my friends at synagogue that Eliyahu had come to my house and even had a sip of wine. But this particular year, I had gotten older. I must have been about 14 or so. So when all the kids went to the door, I hung back. And I watched as my father held back his long white beard, leaned over Eliyahu's cup, and took a sip of wine. Now I felt like that woman on the beach who was being swept away. I tried to call out for help. I felt the ants swarming beneath my feet. A rhino was blocking my vision. Fact and fiction, truth and lies swirled in my mind. My father looked up to see the shock painted on my face, and he too was shocked to find that after all these years, I still believed it to be true. And for years after, I would not let him forget that night. We would regularly banter about it, me saying things like, I would never deceive my children like him, and him retorting that my house would be one devoid of magic and imagination. Well, Father, it's been a decade. I'm expecting my first child, and I get to do things my way. I get to build a relationship that's founded on trust and honesty. But I hope that someday soon, my little boy will get just a small dose of magic from his baby too.